I haven't consumed alcohol since 2017. And I can still remember the smell and the experience. There was a day I was in San Diego. I had walked my fiance out and she was going to work and I was staying home. And she says, "You look a little yellow today." And I was like, no, it's just the sun. And I went and taken a couple shots. And after she left, I think it was later that day, maybe the next day, I was taking a nap. I had gotten really sick in my sleep. It didn't really make sense. As a high functioning alcoholic, all of my hangovers were served with more alcohol. So you're sick? Oh, just take a shot. You'll be fine. You'll forget about it. This was a different kind of sick. It did make sense because I hadn't been drunk in years. I had just been drinking an excessive amount, constantly under the influence. And this was a different type of nausea. It didn't make any sense to me. The sounds got louder and the kids were playing with change and it just started to echo around the room. And it didn't make any sense. Like the walls are starting to kind of cave in. I'm starting to get a little sick and it didn't make any sense. I think I'm gonna throw up. As a precautionary measure, which is very rare, I got up and I was going to the restroom. Once I got to the restroom, I had thrown up stomachfuls of blood. And what had happened, which I realized later, is that 2 veins had opened in my throat. And while I was sleeping, my stomach was just slowly filling with blood, hours and hours and hours. It's called esophageal varices. It's not common, but it happens. So I had poisoned myself with my own blood, which is crazy because you can swallow a pint of blood before you get sick. So I was basically allergic to myself at that point. Craziest, most intense part about that experience was not the throwing up blood, it was not the feeling nauseous, it was not the kids screaming, it was not my fiance trying to figure it out. It was my very first thought after I threw up was, I feel better now. I'll go have a drink. She's like, this is not okay. And so at that moment, I'm standing here, I'm literally shaking, almost convulsing, can't stand up, my legs are going weak, I'm thin, I'm pale and yellow, my eyes are yellow, there's blood on my face, and she calls 911 and she's holding me up. Within 5 minutes, paramedics had shown up and I was at the top of the stairs and they brought me down there. And once again, the only thought that I could think of was, I'm not gonna make it to the hospital if I don't have alcohol, because alcohol is my medicine. And I don't have it, and I didn't take a shot before I got in the ambulance. They took me to the first hospital. That was intense. And so once they figured out what was happening, they put me into surgery. They had sewn up the veins in my throat and they had band my throat up. Then during that process, I went into cardiac arrest. So I was dying. I didn't know about this until 2 years later after I was looking at my medical records. So like, yeah, you went into cardiac arrest twice actually, which is really intense to think about, which is why I know what it feels like to die. Once I realized that that's what happened, I realized that I actually died and came back. So,